Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to this nighttime taste challenge. I can't say dawn because as we get to December, it won't be dawn anytime soon at this point of the morning, but this is the convenient time for me to do it. Okay, so an overnight taste challenge. Bay Street Spirits. Now, if you're on the East Coast, it's dawn, but not here. Bay Street Spirits blended American whiskey. There's a cavern with barrels in it. Well, Florida does have caverns, so it could really be there in Auburndale, Florida. Crafted from a unique blend of 20% straight whiskey and 80% grain neutral spirits. Okay. It's not just bottled by these people, it's actually produced by them and bottled by them. Bay Street Spirits, part of Florida Caribbean Distillers. You may have seen some of their products around, like that specialty wine product they have called I think it's called Capriccio, something like that. I've never tried it. I did buy some of their crazy zany wine specialties, 2 bottles. Somebody had a deal on it, so I think it was like $2.99 or something, or $1.99, some crazy price. Not the normal $7.99. But anyway, that's coming another time. That dragon stuff. But anyway, the competitor is made by Diageo, well-made American blended whiskey. Diageo, the world's biggest liquor company. They produce Johnny Walker, Scotch whiskey. They own George Dickel Tennessee Whiskey Distillery. They own Crown Royal Distillery in Canada. All right, so they made a line of liquor called Well Made: vodka, gin, rum, brandy, American blended whiskey. Introduced in 2017. No website listing. I've only found this twice. The first time I found it, they wanted too much for it, so I just kept passing on it. Then it was finally gone. Somebody bought it. But I saw this liter bottle at, I think, Star in Gretna, Louisiana Highway 23. It was $9, so I think it was $9 even, not $9.99. Now I knew that was an unusually low price, so I bought it. Bought it about, I don't know, during the spring of 2024, 5-6 months ago. All right, I didn't really keep track of when I bought it, but it wasn't long ago. Now, Bay Street Spirits, I bought this probably 5 years ago, and at Total Want, it couldn't have been 5 years ago. They didn't open until 4 years ago in this area. So within the last 4 years, because I'd never been to a Total Wine until they opened here in Metairie, Louisiana. See how pale it is? That is a very straw appearance, very light. Now, I bought one of their other products at Specs in Texas one time called King's Square, I think it was called King's Square American blended whiskey. It had a different blend ratio, but it was from Auburndale, Florida. And I noticed that it was pale like this one. And I noticed that Specs still carries it. I'm not dying to get it. It was pretty good. It had a kind of a almost spicy white pepper flavor. Couldn't figure that out. All right, Diageo, their Well Made is made for the well. It's a well whiskey, but it is well made, but it's nothing unique. It's nothing remarkable. It's like the same type of thing. If you tasted one American blended whiskey, this would blend right in, so to speak, blend right in with the other ones. It's nothing particularly, there's nothing nasty about it, but it's just like the average product. I don't even know why they came out with this. I guess to get in on that well liquor market, where the bars buy the liter bottles and they just, you order a Bloody Mary, they grab the well-made vodka, then they do a massive upcharge on it. Now it has some color, caramel, probably have caramel color added. I can't say that for sure, but it is allowed to have that. and they don't have to disclose it. It can even have flavoring added, blended American blended whiskey, just like Canadian, don't have to disclose it. Fingerprints. This one is so pale that I am suspecting that there is no coloring added. That they're not worried if it looks pale. That's how they want it. So it's very pale, unusually pale for an American blended whiskey. It looks kind of like those single malt, some of the single malt Scotch whiskeys that will say naturally colored, like Ardbeg 10. I'll give you an example. Ardbeg 10 is, they say naturally colored, no coloring added. And it's very pale like that, sort of like straw in a barn. No, it's not going to focus. Okay. Has trouble focusing with no light shining around, if it's dark. Now it'll get itself together. There it goes. It just confuses the webcam. Okay, sorry I can't do any screen share this morning or tonight, I should say, AM hours, 5:50 AM Central, because there is no website listing for either one of these. So you might find a liquor store website that shows it. Yeah, Total Wine and More has that. They got some liquor stores selling well-made, but obviously in Louisiana, considering I saw it twice in Louisiana, not common. Bay Street, no, not at all. I saw it at Total Wine and More. It was $13.99. I figured there's no risk there. And I never saw it again. Don't know about the Bay Street, because it's a whole line, just like the well-made. I never saw the Bay Street vodka, rum, gin, brandy, whatever. But I wasn't looking for it either. So, I was not actively saying, let me find the Bay Street. And I wasn't looking for well-made either, but I don't think, excuse me, I don't think Total Wine and More sells well-made. Or they sell lines, this kind of similar type product, but I don't recall them ever having that. I think I looked for it on the website, nothing came up. Some kind of wine came up, but and the only reason that came up is because the description was a well-made wine, blah blah, and it matched it and it came up. But all right, I had to close my eyes because if I glance, I'm going to see one is darker. So the well-made has a slightly higher percentage of straight whiskey in it. Yeah, 1% higher. Yeah, smells typical. Same old thing. American blended whiskey. Same thing. Corn, maybe a little rye spice, a little bit. Focus on little. A little vanilla. You get some wood, but there's no char. And little sugar, honeysuckle nectar. I don't know what's wrong here. You're typically not going to pick up any char on an American blended whiskey because they usually do not age them in charred oak barrels. It's typically used barrels where the char is all worn off. Or just a barrel that was never charred that's just used. Are they allowed to use charred oak barrels for American blended whiskey? Yeah, there's no rule against it. If you look on the regulations, nothing saying they can't, but they just don't because that's not their profile, they probably have some out there doing it. But then the problem there is if it has a predominant grain, then it's not going to be American blended whiskey anymore. It would flip into a different category, a different type. They call it a type, which would be bourbon whiskey. So if it was a majority, let's say you made a blended whiskey and it was a majority corn and you aged it in a charred oak barrel for 3 years. Well, now it's straight bourbon whiskey, see? Unless you add a color and then it would still be blended. See, that's the difference on that. Very technical. And it all comes down to that technical differences that put it in different types. And some of them are very Thin. The differences between them are very thin. All right, taste time. Cheers. Sweet, sweet corn, a background of oak, like toothpick wood, though. Um, it's like I said in the past with Canadian whiskey and bourbon. You can make Canadian whiskey and bourbon identical, absolutely in every way identical, like they did with the Crown Royal Blenders mash. It was originally called bourbon mash. They couldn't call it bourbon because it wasn't made in the United States. So they called it bourbon mash because they used a bourbon style mash and they aged it in new charred oak barrels. But that was a big controversy because people claimed that they were trying to trick people into thinking it was Canadian bourbon. But it never said that. The bottle never said that. It said bourbon mash. But then the U.S. government made them put a sticker on there saying this is not bourbon whiskey. And then they just rejected it all the way eventually, after initially accepting it. And they decided, you got to change the name. So they changed it or get rid of the product. So they changed the name to Blender's Mash. And then they did get rid of the product. Funny. And that was done from pressure, under pressure from American bourbon producers. True story. Okay, this is very similar. Very similar. Very similar. Same reason they stopped selling Miller High Life in the European Union, not in England, but the European Union, because it said the champagne of beers. And France was saying, you're tricking people. You're going to make people think it's champagne. And the company, Miller Coors, Molson Coors, said, no one in the world is going to believe this is champagne. It's just a nickname for the beer. It's their marketing slogan, the champagne of beers, because it's pale and bubbly. They said, well, you got to take the name off the bottle, cans or bottles, or you can't sell it. They said, well, we're not taking the name off. That's been called the champagne of beers for over 100 years. We just won't sell it. Fine. All they did was replace it wherever they were selling it, just replace it with Miller Genuine Draft, which is almost identical, not identical, but close to being an identical product. Okay, but not exactly. But anyway, it's crazy, these regulations, right? Because nobody on earth would have ever thought that Miller High Life was an actual champagne. On the other hand, they might have thought that Crown Royal made a bourbon. That could have fooled people, I guess, because a lot of people not sitting there reading regulations all day long, I didn't believe it was a bourbon because I read the label. I read the back of the bottle and I read the box. It explained what it was. And it wasn't in the bourbon section anyway. Anyhow, it was in the Canadian whiskey section. It didn't stick it in the bourbon part of the store. I never went to any liquor store where it was stuck in the bourbon section, not one. Because the people at the store had enough sense to know it wasn't a bourbon. But on the other hand, half the liquor stores in Louisiana put Seagram's 7 Crown in the Canadian section. And Seagram's 83, that one from Kentucky, the American version. I said, why y'all got this here? Oh, it's Seagram's, is Canadian. I said, nah. I said, nope. And you can't explain it to them. They're not going to listen. So and if they'd bothered reading the label, I said, the label says Kentucky, which I don't believe is part of Canada. But they don't care, so let it stay. All right. I would say the flavor here is even. Quality, yeah, even, because it's funny. The Auburndale distillery down there, Florida Caribbean Distillers, which is not in the Caribbean, that started in 1943, and it was a Seagram's distillery. They built a distillery in Florida, opened it in 1943. Why they picked that year, I don't know. And they owned it. They just produced stuff down there until they sold it off in 2000. I guess it was 2000 or 2001. 2001 to this independent company, because the Seagram's people, who were not the Seagram's family, it was another family that had bought them out in the 1920s, the Bronfen family. They decided to get out of the liquor business altogether for whatever reason. Well, I know the reason. I read a long article about it. They said that they wanted to get into telecommunications, like entertainment, movies, streaming video. They had this young guy that was young for them, 45 for them was young, because they used to always have these old people running it. And he was like, liquor is a slow growth industry. He was kind of wrong, because look at the explosion of bourbon and all in the last 25 years. But he said, this new technology, all the new entertainment media, digital technology, is going to really blow up, which it did. And he said, we're going to make potentially a lot more money if we transfer over to that. And at first they lost a lot because they had that big recession in 2000, 2001. But then they recouped it all, I guess, because now it's big. They put all their money in this company called Vivendi from France. And if you look them up, Vivendi, it's a huge conglomerate. And they didn't sell their company for cash. Well, they got stock from Vivendi. They got cash for selling all their distilleries and brands to other companies like Diageo and all. But they took that and they bought stock with it. And then the stock dropped so much. But then, that goes back up if you just got patience, and especially in that new industry, that new technological area. So I guess they ended up coming out of it later with big money. But whatever, that's not our problem right now. I'm just explaining it. It's not going to be our problem ever unless you're part of the Bronfen family, I guess. But Seagram still exists in a sense. All right. So taste, I might have to call this a tie. And that means no winner, no loser. I can't help it. I'm not going to just guess to get a 50-50 shot. I don't like to play it like that. Because you might say, well, you got it right. Yeah, but it's a wild guess. Sugar water. Most whiskey to me tastes like sugar water. Sugar water. My friend David said, whiskey doesn't taste like sugar water. I said, not to you, but maybe it doesn't taste like that to you, but to me it does. This has a little weird underlying rye spice. I'm serious. It's like a pepper. And I noticed that with the King Square. And I remember a recollection, Bay Street having that. So I guess this is Bay Street. I can't say it's better or worse. It just seemed like it might have a little slight differentiation there. Oh, but it's the Diageo one. It's well made. So there's another loss. Oh, golly. Good morning, Ronald. Good morning to you, CS. Well, I got to go. The news is starting, y'all. Bye-bye.